Terry Funk, more than just hardcore. Chapter 3 Part 1. West Texas State, running with the Outlaws. When I graduated high school, I was very small for my age, 155 pounds. I got a tryout down at Cisco Junior College, and that summer I had a big growth spurt and shot up to 185 pounds. There were no steroids then, either. I made the junior college team and just kept growing. I weighed 225 and played linebacker and guard down there. When I transferred to West Texas, I was at about 240 pounds. I was just late in maturing. West Texas was where I wanted to go because it was close to home. Junior, my brother, had just finished up there, and the football team had gone to the Sun Bowl where they beat the University of Ohio. I had been wrestling amateur but gave it up my sophomore year in high school. I still practiced my wrestling skills at home. I worked out in our garage, which had been transformed into a wrestling gym, with guys like my father, brother, Bob Geigel, Vern Gagne, Dick Hutton, Joe Scarpella, and Lou Thez, to name a few. My relationship with Vicky also picked up a lot of steam during my college years. We had gone to the junior and senior proms together in high school, and I'd been in love with her right from the very first date with her. I focused on football in college. Joe Kerbel was the coach, and he was a great coach, but he was also absolutely nuts. He'd come right out there and kick you right in the butt. He had been a sergeant in the Marines and was probably one of the toughest men in coaching. He had a hell of a program there. We were a bunch of outlaws. And a bunch of those outlaws became big names in the wrestling business. Frank Goodish, who later gained fame in wrestling as Bruiser Brody, had some go-rounds with Kerbel when he went to West Texas State. Brody was an asshole. He was on the third team not because of ability, but because he had come to West Texas State after getting kicked out of Iowa State University. Another outlaw. We used to go to the bar on 16th Street, where you had to parallel park. Brody used to be the champion of running cars. He would take off running at full speed. Now he was a big-ass bastard, so when he got going, he'd jump and land one foot on the trunk, next foot on the roof, next foot on the trunk of the next parked car, and so on. That was the deal. You had to see how many cars you could do, and Brody was so damn big, he could do that for a whole block. Brody was always tall, but he got huge after he discovered desiccated liver after college, and he lived on it. This was before steroids or anything else. When he left school, he weighed 240, and not long after, I saw this enormous guy walking down the street, and damned if it wasn't Frank Goodish. That desiccated liver had made him huge, but it also gave him the worst smelling farts of anyone I've ever known. He was working as a sports writer for the Odessa American newspaper. When he did get into wrestling, I gave him his initial ring name, Frank the Hammer Goodish. We had goal line scrimmage the last 5 minutes of practice. Brody would play on third team, and everyone else was just practicing, but he'd go ahead and pump up the goddamn defense so much that we'd be out there until the goddamn sun was going down. Another West Texas player who became a great pro wrestler, and who became very close to Bruiser Brody, was Stan Hansen. He came to the school a couple of years after Brody. Stan is the greatest guy in the world and was a very talented wrestler. Like a select few others, Stan Hansen got his start in wrestling through the Funks. Stan came to me one day in 1972 and asked, "Would you talk to your dad about me wrestling?" I said I'd talk to my father. Stan, at 6'3" and 280 pounds, was driving a Ford Pinto and was coaching high school football in New Mexico. I told my father I thought Stan could be a good wrestler, and I set up a meeting between my father and Stan at my house. My father told Stan about all the training he'd have to do and how he'd have to learn some amateur wrestling. That was something that was important to my father, as he was breaking guys in. He also showed them that they could be beaten in an actual wrestling contest. At the end of their meeting, Stan asked my father, "So how much do you think I can make wrestling?"